Thank you, Presiding Officer. And let me commence by moving the motion that stands in my name. Although the bill is quite lengthy, its key principle is very simple. The bill converts ultra-long leases to ownership. Under the bill, ultra-long leases are over 175 years long, and in the case of residential property, have more than 100 years left to run at the appointed day, or, in the case of non-residential property, have more than 175 years to run. Under the bill, renewals, which the landlord is obliged to grant, are taken into account when calculating the duration of leases. Examples of this can be found in Blairgowrie. We estimate that around 9,000 leases are covered by the bill. Leases where the annual rental is over £100, and so the landlord has retained a genuine interest, are excluded from the bill. The bill is a modest simplification of property law. Ultra-long leases are akin to ownership, but they're not quite ownership, and that can cause problems. There may be inappropriate conditions in the leases, which are often quite old. Lenders may not fully understand the precise nature of the title, which might make it harder for the tenant to obtain a loan using the property as security. And conveyancing lawyers have told us that they groan at the sight of an ultra-long lease, as it makes it more complex to complete a transaction relating to the property. So reform was needed, and the Scottish Law Commission produced the report at the end of 2006, which we are now seeking to implement. And as the Commission said when they issued their report, the aim is to bring law and reality into line by converting such leases into ownership. Implementing this report on long leases is part of the implementation of a series of reports by the Commission on Property Law. The work includes the abolition of feudal tenure, etc., Scotland Act 2000, the Leasehold Casualty Scotland Act 2001, the Title Conditions Scotland Act 2003, the Tenement Scotland Act 2004. Indeed, work on reforming property law and abolition of feudal tenure has been going on for some time. For example, the Land Tenure Reform Scotland Act 1974 prohibited new feud duties, conferred a right to redeem feud duties voluntarily, and provided for the compulsory redemption of existing feud duties when a property was sold. So this bill completes an aspect of property law reform. And I'd like to take this opportunity to record my thanks to the Scottish Law Commission for their work on property law reform. We have, of course, just appointed a new chair of the Scottish Law Commission, Lady Clark of Carlton. As Linda Clark, she will be well known to many of us. The Government looks forward to working with her on the reports the Commission produces and on helping to implement these reports. The value of the work of the Commission is shown when we look at the detail of the bill. I said the bill has a simple concept at its heart, conversion to ownership. But the bill has to protect landlords' rights too, and that is one of the reasons why it has to be fairly lengthy. Therefore, the bill makes provision for a number of leasehold conditions to convert to real burdens in the title deeds. It allows landlords to preserve sporting rights. It makes provision for compensatory payments to be made based on the rent which the landlord will be losing. It makes provision for additional payments to be made to reflect other rights which the landlord may be losing. In many cases, the detail of the bill may not have much impact on individual leases. On sporting rights, the Commission noted in paragraph 5.13 of their report that, although not common in the context of ultra-long leases, the rights where they exist may be of considerable value. On compensation for the loss of rent, the typical annual rental in an ultra-long lease is under £5, and so the compensation will inevitably not amount to very much either. And the Commission noted in paragraph 6.28 of their report that cases where additional payments will be claimed are likely to be rare. However, the provisions will be needed in some cases, and they are there to protect landlords' rights. There has been vigorous debate about some of the provisions in the bill when it was considered in the last Parliament by the Justice Committee. and when it was considered this time round by the Rural Affairs, Climate Change and Environment Committee. I believe the bill has been improved as a result. The scrutiny this bill received at stage 1 shows the benefit of the processes followed by this Parliament, and we've had the benefit of 2 excellent stage 1 reports. Before the bill was introduced to Parliament again in January, we made some amendments to reflect the Justice Committee's previous report. We added an exemption for harbours. We clarified the exemption for pipes and cables. We made provision for allowing landlords to register an exemption where the rental is over £100 per year. This reflects that the lease may include variable rental, which can mean that the annual rent paid is more than £100 a year. In this session, further amendments have been made to reflect the evidence that was taken. We've amended the requirement in relation to the unexpired portion of a lease to draw a distinction between residential and non-residential leases. And we amended Section 2 to reflect that the annual rent payable under a lease can be varied by a registered minute of variation or agreement. I do appreciate that there has been much made about common good. The debate we've just had reflects that, and we as a government are taking the issues that have been raised there very seriously. However, we're very reluctant to cut across the general principle of the bill that ultra-long leases are, in any event, akin to ownership and should convert to actual ownership. In conclusion, Presiding Officer, this bill is part of wider work that's been carried out to reform property law. Clarifying the law in this way makes life easier for tenants in ultra-long leases, lenders and solicitors engaged in transactions relating to property, and ultimately, presumably, will relieve many of costs in transactions related to transfer because of simplification. Now, this is not a bill that's going to magically transform the world, but I think I can say without fear of contradiction that simplification will be welcomed by practitioners in the field. Presiding Officer, I commend this bill to Parliament. I look forward to this concluding debate.